We are going to study the components of aggregate demand. That is, first of all, we will study consumption. Actually, before going into the details of multiplier model, we need to study what is meant by consumption and saving. In part of AS students, AS boys, they will find it easy to understand the saving, because in our AS labels they have written all the injections and withdrawals instead of showing the components of aggregate demand, that is consumption, investment and government spending and net exports. So we need to study consumption first of all before going into the details of savings and other withdrawals and injections. So the same is the case. A2 students, they will find it easy to learn multiplier model after doing this components in detail and savings. Then they will be able to understand the multiplier model. So right now I'm going to deliver this lesson about the first component of consumption, first component of aggregate demand, that is consumption or household expenditures. So we know that aggregate demand is equal to C plus I plus G plus net export. C is the consumption of the goods and services by the consumers in a given time period. It is the household expenditure in an economy. Now C is the function of national income. Basically, when income level increases, so consumption will also increase. So people are having dependence upon their income. When their incomes are increasing, so consumption and saving both are dependent upon income. So when national income increases, people either increase consumption or saving, so that depends. So first of all, when they are at a lower level of national income and then national income is increasing, so most part of that income will be spent on consumption of the goods and services. And once the consumption is fulfilled, then people will start saving. Actually, the part of income which is not consumed, that is called the saving. There can be two types of consumption. One is called autonomous consumption, another is called induced consumption. Autonomous means independent. Like we say, a university is an autonomous body, so it means that university is an independent body. A central bank is an autonomous body, so it is not following the instructions of the government, rather it is making its monetary policy independently, so it is having no state influence. So same is the case. Autonomous consumption means which is independent of the income level. Even the income level is zero, consumption does not equal to zero, it will remain positive. So that income which is independent of that consumption which is independent of the income level, that is called autonomous consumption. Whereas induced consumption, that is dependent upon the level of national income. So it depends how national income is changing, and that will be changing the consumption in the economy. So here autonomous consumption means, autonomous means independent. This consumption is independent of income. At zero level of income, there is still positive consumption. Induced consumption, induced, it depends upon level of national income. So now C is function of national income, where C is equal to A plus BY, where A stands for autonomous consumption and BY, that is induced consumption. So B is actually marginal propensity to consume. Like marginal means additional. So out of every additional dollar of income, how much is spent on consumption? Here I have written the consumption equation like 100 plus 0.8y, where 100 denotes that even at zero level of income, consumption is still positive, that is 100. And 0.8y denotes that marginal propensity to consume, that out of every additional dollar, 0.8 is consumed. This is the additional consumption of additional dollar of income. And when 0.8 is multiplied by income, so that will give us the induced consumption by the households in the economy. So marginal means extra or additional. So y1 is 1000, whereas y2 is 2000. So I am explaining how MPC is found. So C1, consumption 1, when income is 1000, so 100 plus 0.8 into 1000. So here we find 800 is the induced consumption. When it is added up with the autonomous consumption, it is equal to 900 total consumption. Whereas C2, that is when income level is 2000, so the total consumption will be amounting for 1700. So MPC can be found by change in consumption due to change in income. So change in consumption is 800 and change in income is 1000, so the MPC value is 0.8. So here I have drawn the consumption line. First of all, there is a 45-degree line. What is the 45-degree line over here? I am going to bold it with the green line. So this is the 45-degree line. This 45-degree line has actually divided the 90-degree angle of y-axis and x-axis into equal halves. Like 45-degree line is showing that along this line, whatever the national income is there, nominal GDP, that equals to the consumption. On the vertical side, I am taking the aggregate expenditure that is equal to consumption. So 45-degree line says that income and consumption are equal along this line, whereas actual consumption may vary with this 45-degree line. So where the equilibrium is present, you can find the equilibrium or break even point of this diagram at here, where consumption is equal to income. All income is equal to the consumption, so saving is zero. Before this equilibrium point, you will find that blue line is lying above the green line, where the actual consumption or actual expenditures are more than the planned income or planned expenditure. So here people are saving is negative and consumption is more than income. And you will find that at zero income there is 100 consumption. This is autonomous consumption. So we find this below the equilibrium, saving is negative. At $150 income, consumption is more than 150. So people are saving. They are using their previous savings or they are borrowing from somewhere else. So when income is equal to consumption at equilibrium point, saving is zero. And after this, green line is going to be above the blue line. It means income is more than consumption, so people are saving. The saving is positive. So here I have taken one of the triangle that shows us the gradient or slope of this consumption line, which is equal to the MPC, change in consumption divided by change in income. So that will give us the value of MPC, or its gradient will be showing us the MPC value. So here we have the saving curve. So saving is zero when income, in the upper diagram you will see when at equilibrium income and consumption are equal, saving is zero. Below this, saving is negative, and after this equilibrium, saving is positive. And the slope of this saving line is called MPS. What is MPS? MPS is actually, this is the MPS, this is the slope. All right. So slope tells us how much additional dollar of income will be saved by the people. MPS, here it is change in saving due to change in income. MPS. So each dollar is either consumed or saved. If MPC value is 0.8, so MPS will be 0.2. So this is very important for A2 students to learn how MPS is calculated, because that will help us understand multiplier model, which is upcoming lesson. So MPC can be found 1 minus MPS, and MPS can be found 1 minus MPC. So explain how consumption of the household is determined. So there can be different determinants of consumption function. So we can find over here, there are the different determinants. Household consumption expenditure, also known as consumer spending, refer to the amount spent by the households on goods and services to satisfy their current needs and wants. This is the largest component of aggregate demand, accounting for approximately 60 to 70% of total aggregate demand. So what are the determinants of household consumption? That is the disposable income, the income after taxes. So if that income is increasing, and after taxes plus transfer payments, that will shift this consumption line upward. So when consumption line shifts upward, more national income equilibrium will be there. Consumer confidence, household expectations about future income, employment. If people are thinking that in future their income level will increase, so they will also be able to increase more consumption. And economic conditions, if they are going to be favorable. Interest rates, that can be one of the determinants of consumption. At low rate of interest, people will borrow more and they will be able to consume more part of borrowed income, so consumption line will again shift. Wealth, you all know the assets, changes in household wealth such as increase in housing prices or stock market values, that will also increase the consumption line. Changes in prices of goods and services, when prices are falling, consumption line will shift upward. So when prices are decreasing, so consumption line will shift downward. So how household consumption expenditure affect aggregate demand? Increase in household consumption expenditure lead to an increase in aggregate demand as more goods and services are demanded. Decrease in household consumption expenditure lead to decrease in aggregate demand as fewer goods and services are demanded. So here are the some questions about the consumption and everything we have studied over here. So I am going to draw the shift of this aggregate consumption line over here for you people. You will see this thing here. I am going to draw the shift of aggregate as consumption. This is the nominal GDP. I am not taking real GDP this time. This is the nominal GDP. This is the aggregate expenditure, which is equal to consumption. So here we find the 45-degree line that will show us the aggregate supply is equal to Y, and aggregate along this line economy will be in equilibrium. If this is the consumption line, you will find over here this is the equilibrium point. Now this is the line before the price changes. You will see over here, this is the consumption line before the price changes, as we mentioned it earlier. So when prices are falling, prices are falling, so consumption line will shift upward, or there is increase in wealth. So in the lower diagram I will draw the aggregate demand line, which we studied yesterday's lesson. So here I am taking GDP or real GDP. We were taking the real GDP over here, and here I am taking the price level. So right now economy is in equilibrium at this point. So in the lower diagram you will find this thing. This is the GDP level when prices are P1, and this is the point we can find. This is the point A. When prices are falling, this consumption line will shift upward. Okay, this is now C2. So I can make it green for you people, or I make a lighter blue line over here. So this is C2. Now consumption line has shifted upward due to the other factors. So you will find over here, this is the P2, prices have decreased. So the new equilibrium point is here. More goods and services are being consumed by the economy. This is the income level Y1. This is income level Y2. People have increased their consumption. You will find the increase in real GDP as well due to fall in price level. So if we join these two dots, which I have drawn in the lower diagram, so we will get the aggregate demand line of the economy. So this is a derivation of aggregate demand actually. How aggregate demand is derived from the upper diagram. So you will see when wealth of the country is increasing, consumption line will shift upward. When interest rate goes down, consumption line will shift upward. And when other factors which are other than nominal GDP and consumption, if they are going to change, and if they are favoring, the consumption line will shift upward. Our government spending will increase the aggregate expenditure line upward. So this is consumption line 1, aggregate expenditure 1. This is aggregate expenditure 2. So equilibrium has shifted upward due to the changes in consumption. So this is all about the today's lesson. You will find it interesting. And I hope so you will be able to understand what the first component of aggregate demand, that is consumption. And it is interesting to learn consumption, and then we will be moving towards investment by tomorrow. Thank you.